Hi friends, Right Careers welcomes you to another brand new video for this week. This is Sudarshan, your career coach. Before we get on to the actual topic for this week, the customary thing, in case you have subscribed to my channel, thank you so much, and in case you haven't, do subscribe by clicking on the subscription button, which is www.youtube.com/rightcareers, and also hit the bell button for instant notifications. But moving on to this week's video, we are entering the last phase of February, last part of February, and February literally means an admission season for schools, and we get a lot of calls from anxious parents day in day for the last few weeks or months, in fact, and last few days it has been at its peak, and there are a lot of anxious parents, and anxious is highly understandable because as parents it's our responsibility to set the children, to set our children, or to give our children a right foundation and a strong foundation. It's very essential, right? We have read in the statistics, right, that the brain growth of every child, of any infant or a child happens, the 90% of the brain growth usually happens from the age of 0 to 5, and the remaining 10% of the brain growth peaks from age 5 to 8, which means by the time a child enters 8 years, the brain is almost, it's done and dusted in terms of growth. So it's very important that when the brain grows at a rapid pace from the age of 0 to 8, we nurture right things to our children, and therefore it becomes very, very important to give our children a very strong start to their academic or to their education career. And that's where we thought this week's video, and maybe next week also, we thought we will discuss about a topic that is perhaps the most need of an hour, I would say. And the topic for the next 2 weeks starting from today is how to find a balanced school for your child. Now let me reiterate, it's not going to be how to find the right school for your child. No, I'm not going to speak about how to find the right school. Rather, it's going to be how to find the balanced school for your child. Now, I am conscious in using this word balance and not the word right, because what is right to me need not be right to you, and what is right to you need not be right to me. So that's applicable universally, and therefore for some parents the school will be very good, and the same school will be bad for some parents for reasons, because it's the priority that matters to each and every child and their respective parents. And therefore you really cannot say that this is 100% right school for everybody. No, that's not going to happen. So you have to find, we have to customize, I use this word customize. You have to customize our needs and find the balanced school for our children, and that's exactly as parents we need to do. Now, before we end, we see how do we find that balance in the school that we are going to choose for our children. There are two questions that will constantly hit you. The first question obviously is, how do I find that balanced school? What is mean by balancing? Many of you might have this doubt. What is balancing? Schools are there primarily to impart knowledge, right? That we all know. That's what the purpose of education also. And school is one tool. Education is not only academics. We all agree to that. At least this generation's parents will agree with me that education is not about academics alone. It is definitely academics. It is also non-academic parts like the sports, the art, the culture, everything. So you got to identify a school that's that gives equal weightage, if not some amount of weightage to all, that includes academics, sports, and arts and culture. So that is a balanced school. So how do I find that balanced school will be a question that you might ask with me. The second obvious question is, which education board to choose? Obviously there are multiple education boards these days. When we studied it was just one or two, but then now you have CBSE, ICSE, the international boards, Cambridge or IB. We have already done a detailed review of boards, especially IGCSE, that's the Cambridge or IB, and then the comparison of boards that we have done, and that video is a huge viral among you, and thank you so much for that. I've given all those links here. That video has just crossed 25,000 likes, 25,000 views, and therefore in case you have any doubts, you can refer to this video, which is to that comparison video, which is already given beneath this link, right? So now moving on, we will now identify, we will see how do I find that balanced school. So this week we will see few, and in the next week we will see few other points. The first factor, or the first aspect that as a parent that you need to look in when you have to identify the balanced school is, whether the philosophy of the school matches with you or not. Now, every school will have a philosophy, or every school will have a vision or mission, or goal rather. So every school has that. Now that determines the rest of the factors. So philosophy determines the rest of the factors. Now philosophy can be anything. Philosophy can be academics. Philosophy can be non-academics also. I'll give you a few examples. Last week I was in Kota, Rajasthan, that happens to produce numerous amount of innumerable students for IIT or to great engineering colleges in our country. So when I went to a school and asked a principal of the school in Kota that what is the philosophy of your school? That was the question that I asked to the principal, and the principal was instant to answer. My philosophy or my vision of this school is to give 50% of my students, right? 50% of my grade 11 and 12 students or grade 12 students should clear any competitive examinations. Now, he didn't mention it's NEET or JEE or CA, nothing like that. But his philosophy was 50% of the students should clear any competitive examinations. And that's a very good philosophy. That's a good goal that the principal has. Similarly, I know a school in Chennai, that focuses a lot on sports. It says, yes, academics is important, but we believe in developing children in the areas of sports, and that sports could be any game. It could be chess, it could be equestrian, it could be cricket, it could be badminton, anything. So there are sports schools. Now in case you want your son or daughter to focus on academics but also focus a little bit more on sports, then focus on such schools, and therefore that philosophy matters. So what philosophy that a school has, you have to see, you have to check, and then align with your thoughts, your child's thought, and then enroll in such schools. Now some schools have good scholastic goals. Scholastics is academic. Some schools will have very good non-scholastic, that they focus on sport, they focus on arts and science, etc. Right? Now, if you identify a school that focuses on everything, that focuses on academics, that also focuses on theatre or arts, culture, co-curricular activities we call, or extracurricular activities, and the sports, then it is a balanced school, right? You may, how do I find whether the school is balanced or not? You may gauge this easily. When you talk with principal, these days principals do speak to the parents, to speak to the prospective parents. So as a parent, you can speak to the principal, you can speak to the educators, that is the teachers, and you can speak to the students who are already studying, the parents of students who are already studying. So take feedback from them, try to understand what the school does in terms of the philosophy. Also, I'll give you a tip. It's a very simple tip. When a school participates in extra competitions, like for example spell bee is a competition, or when a school participates in Olympiad, or when a school participates in KYVP or any competitive examination, or when a school participates in zonals, in inter-school cultural competitions, then the school is skewed towards some philosophy. Now that is a way to find out whether the school is balanced or not. So that's the first point as to how to measure the right balanced school for your child. It is purely based on the philosophy of the school. The second most important aspect when it comes to choosing your balanced school is obviously the board. Obviously there are numerous boards these days. We have discussed at length in terms of board. CBSE and ICSE are primarily the two Indian boards that are there in the country. With CBSE has very good amount of penetration in Indian markets. Wherever you go, you'll have a CBSE school. On the other hand, now ICSE is slightly better when it comes to experiential learning. So the learning is better when it comes to ICSE in terms of experiential learning. So that's ICSE. Now if you're keen about international education, if you're keen to have some kind of international flavor in your child's academic growth, then there is always IB and Cambridge, or rather it's popularly called as IGCSE. You have IB and Cambridge IGCSE. Now IB is more rigorous. It focuses a lot on academics and focuses a lot on faculty training also. It keeps all the faculty at bay, and it gives numerous amount of training to faculty so that they are updated, to the teachers, so that they are updated with the current trends. Now Cambridge on the other hand also does that, but at the same time the presence of Cambridge or penetration of Cambridge is very, very good in India. So that is something about Cambridge. And in case you have some inclination towards Indian competitive examinations, that's again a very important point. If you are very, very clear that I want to study in India, I want my son or daughter to study in India, especially the engineering or medical, and I don't want any kind of international exposure, then it is advisable not to even look at international boards. CBSE and ICSE also sets a very good foundation at a junior level, at a kindergarten level also. On the other hand, if you think that my student or my son or daughter should be exposed to global practices, should be exposed to should be keen on moving abroad for higher education, then you can definitely look at international boards like IB or Cambridge. Now there is also a myth which I thought I should clear it before we wrap up for this week. That myth is, if my son or daughter studies in CBSE or Indian boards, ICSE, they cannot go abroad for higher education. That's a very, very wrong myth. And the other way, if my son or daughter studies in international boards, say IB or Cambridge, he or she might not be eligible for NEET, or he or she might not clear JEE. That's a big myth. So it's not that a particular board prepares you for a particular thing. No, right? So it's absolutely not. I know a lot of CBSE students who are doing well in abroad and even at undergraduation level, and I know quite a lot of students who have perceived IB or Cambridge and then doing well in India also. So both ways it's possible, right? So on that note, I would like to wind up this week in terms of 2 points that we saw. The first one was about philosophy of the school, and second one is about the board. The next week that follows, we will see some more points and then finally come to a conclusion as to how do we choose the balanced school for your child, right? And do click on the links for further details, and until next week, right? With continuation of this topic, see you all, take care, and in case you have any doubts, you can always ping me. The credentials are beneath this video. Thank you so much. Have a safe week.